And yeah, I found also a little post from your side on LinkedIn, which extremely well, from my point of view, described that, and also with a certain self-irony. That's what I really liked about. I think it started something like, it took me around 20 years. Smart people might have figured out it faster. But well, I mean, you are able to formulate it and your key learnings for a successful BI project. So, I mean, that's a good thing overall. And one thing right away, you covered that already at the beginning. It's not only about technical expertise. There's a lot you mentioned, like organizational and on a human level, of course. But maybe just for our listeners, could you sum that up? What are your key learnings? What makes successful BI projects work?
Yeah, I think let me deal with the first part there, Kai, which was it took me 20 years to figure it out, and it really did. And there are people out there, depending on their background, would figure it out way faster than I would. So if someone had a background in change management, they'd go look at the problems that people have in BI and analytics and working with data, and they go, oh yeah, that's a people problem. You need to do this, this, and that, and done. They'll drive adoption. The tools that I had, I would say didn't support me in being able to spot or identify what the problems were. And I think it's a problem a lot of people have in the analytics and BI space, is we're very technically competent and we know how to work with certain tools and we know how to work with data, but we don't necessarily know how to work with people. And that's what took me so long to figure out. Was you could build the best dashboard in the world. It could have tremendous insight. The risk here is, though, if we deliver on the promise of data, which is to, let's say, drive behavioral change, let's say that is an aspect of it, or inform better decision making. Well, if that decision making is going to have organizational impact, which naturally we want it to have, we also have to have a similar track that is going to deal with the impact of that change. And so for me, that's what took time to learn and understand. You have to bring people on a journey. We've heard this story, the data storytelling piece, and it always come across it. It's very important. Data storytelling is important. But the more important story to tell is the story of people around data, not the story within the data. That's important. But if you can't bring people on that journey, then how are we going to get them to use data to inform their decisions? And over the years, then maybe I would have started with 100%. Let's focus on the data and making great dashboards. And over the years, it starts to change. Hey, maybe 10% we need to focus on people. Still 90% on data. I'm nearly at the point now where it's like 10% is on data and dashboards, and the rest is just on people and bringing them on that journey. And it might continue that way. It might completely change. I might find one day to the next, I need to change my approach here. But I have found putting the focus on people and change management and user experience has yielded far greater results than worrying about should the filters be on the left or the right side of a dashboard. What exact size should the font be? Should we use pie charts of our bar graphs? Like, those things are all important considerations, but look, if people aren't accessing and using it and adopting it and influencing their behavior and impacting the organization, it's kind of like a trivial conversation to be having if people just aren't interested or involved. So for me, those are my learnings, Kai. Like the importance of change management mixed with user experience, and the small bits that you can take away from those methodologies and apply them into BI is going to have a huge impact. In my experience, far more impact than something like data visualization best practices. Important, but if you want to impact, focus on people.
So
Definitely.
Really, really interesting, because I think you made the evolution that a lot of people did in the last 10 years. I come from this more like change management part and project management part, and it was just coming by incident to BI, let's say, and was more like an outsider in the beginning. Like there
Right.
was a real like you had a department caring of people and do HR consulting, for example. And at my start at KPMG in the beginning, I was like just by incident in the BI sector, and just then they took me into project where the client was not satisfied with the solution, but they were just they didn't want to pay for the HR consulting, and they didn't want somebody outside there just talking with them stupid stuff. And I was just IT consultant, but I was doing just the emotional, the change management part, but with the in the corner of IT consulting. And now, like it's like 3-4 years that really changed, that people accept and know that there's a lot of change management, project management inside of all these BI things. You still, and that's what I learned, you still need the technique and you need the knowledge like Kai has, like really knowing, and there's a lot of psychology within as well, saying filters left and right and forms like this, but you need this HR part more as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Kai, you wanted to say something as well. I interrupted you a little bit.
No, that's fine. I mean, we're probably all heading in the same direction, saying, okay, it's not all about technologies, it's more about the human factor, and that many that projects rather fail due to missing steps in communication or organizational behaviors than really with regard to technologies. But maybe just from your practical experience, what are the few things, the few recommendations you would like to share with our listeners concerning your, let's say, best practices? How do you speeden up the process for companies, not doing this 20-year path like you did again? What are your best practices in turning project experiences, best practices, whatever?
Absolutely, Kai. So look, I would ask the audience to think of any time they've had a significant change event in their life. Now, for me, I have issues with very minor changes. Like, for example, I was speaking at TWI in Vancouver a few years ago, and I could see where there was a trash can. It was in a certain area of the room beside the door. After the lunch break, the trash can wasn't there anymore. That little change caused an irritation in me, so much so that I had to pause, take a break, and go find out what happened to the trash can. Now, that's incredibly trivial. But if you think of like any change events in your own life, and the cycle that you go through, and Victoria, you obviously know about all of this, right? But you get denial, you get anger, you get all of these things you have to go through to allow that to happen. And sometimes you can avoid it, and sometimes you can't. Other times you can accelerate it. What I have learned is, if we're introducing change, and let's call a dashboard a change agent, we're going to introduce friction. We're going to have to deal with the friction. It's going to happen. We can deal with it at the end of the project, and that's going to surface in terms of no one using your dashboard, or people getting angry and upset and not liking you. The other option is to involve them really early on. And that's the first tip I would give here, is to say, if you are doing a new dashboard, or someone's thrown over a request over the wall and says, okay, we need this dashboard or report built, it needs to be treated like a partnership. And I think if you go into it with that mindset, okay, we're going to go on a journey together. I cannot do this by myself. I cannot come up with the requirements based off, some flimsy details in an email. It's going to require partnership. So tip number 1, partner. Tip number 2 after that is you need to focus on the personas, which is a little bit more of a user experience piece, but you need to properly understand the goals and challenges for who you're designing for. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that I see in BI is we're not truly understanding who we're designing for. Most projects that I see fail are designing for too many personas. And just in case a few folks don't know what a persona is a group of people that you can group together by common goals and challenges. A good persona is, you were talking about, Victoria, you're talking about HR manager is a reasonably good persona. All HR managers in an organization probably have similar goals and characteristics, but they're different to a finance manager's goals and challenges. So they'd be two different personas. We have to identify who we're designing for. And if there are too many divergent goals, or goals that do not align within that persona, we're probably designing for too many people. We probably need to cut back a little bit and refine a little bit more. We might find that it's a HR managers within Germany are the ones in our organization that have the most similar characteristics. The ones in, let's say, France are too dissimilar, right? So we have to break it up. So that'd be another tip that I'd give. And finally, a third tip, have a product approach, a product launch approach to your dashboard. Treat it like you have to sell your dashboard, and treat the end users like the market. What benefits are you going to convey to them with the dashboard? And do they truly understand those benefits? Now, there's a whole other set of tips that would go along with taking a product approach. And there's a really good book, if people ever want to look it up, called The Product Launch Formula by Jeff Walker. It's a standardized process for how to launch products and get people engaged in them. And it does require you, when you are starting off with your dashboard, to truly understand what are the levers for value that your end users really care about. So I think, Kai, they're probably the main things I'd want to share with the audience here.
Perfect. I mean, I like those 3 tips pretty much. I mean, they're covering a lot. Not everything is easy to directly implement, but the idea is also what I see exactly in the projects, and these are the definitely success factors if you like to bring it to an end. This product perspective, really caring about the people right from the beginning. If you're not doing that, it's definitely no chance really to succeed.